It is Friday. No matter where you are in the world, I think it's still Friday for everyone. So, welcome to either the end of the week, the start of the week. Maybe you don't care what day of the week it is, but I'm certainly celebrating Friday because we're one day closer to Wednesday, which we'll talk about in a minute. But all week we have been having small talks with big thinkers about different topics as they pertain to the core values on the Backstage Pass. I am Rose Kaz, the femme founder of that space, particularly built for women who want to see the world change. And our guest today, Desireé B. Stevens, she's definitely one of those humans that I have been able to cross paths with in the last year. And I see the work that Des is doing, and I want you all to know about it. So as a big thinker, I said, Desireé, would you come over and have this small talk with me, particularly about diversity and why we need to keep caring about it even after we take down our BLM stickers from our window, or we're not wearing our t-shirt anymore, or whatever the next movement is, why diversity actually matters every single day before 2020, after 2022 and beyond. And as I go to pass the mic to Desireé, I want to throw back to a chat I had with Des on her podcast, particularly as Desireé invited me in and said, you wanted to know why I don't use the word feminist. Why don't you interview me instead of me interview you? I liked it. I was like, okay, yes. So
Yeah.
Desireé, before we dig into a little more of, perhaps why you're not a feminist, but more over a humanist, talk to us a little bit about the work you've done in your life, where you're coming to this conversation about diversity mattering every single day. Pass the mic to you.
God, thanks. That was heavy. Why is diversity important? Well, I myself have a diverse background, right? I'm Irish and Black. And so that in and of itself created a need in my own life to understand diversity, how it works. And in doing so, it's led me to begin to pathologize whiteness as a system. And in
Mm.
doing that, it led me into decolonization work and decolonization counseling, creating an online community, which is intended to become in-person community. And that's pretty much what I do all day, like just talking with people in regard to how healing is a necessary thing, right? Too often white people come at stuff and it's like a new thing to do. Right. Like you said, like the BLM stickers are down, right? Everything went really heavy and hard with George Floyd in 2020. And then white people get bored and they forget, while other people are still like living this hellscape that they have co-created together. And
Mm-hmm.
we're still trying to navigate it. And so for me, I do it from a perspective of healing white people, because everybody else is subjected. The global majority is suffering because white people are living in a delusion of supremacy and thinking that they could actually save somebody from them. That's pretty much what it comes to.
Right. And that last piece right there, like that's like the ultra mind fuck, right? And for everybody
Yeah.
included, but particularly for the people who are purveying it, is like, well, what? Like, you need my help, right? It's like, well,
Yeah.
yeah, but we
No.
also have to, like, yeah,
But
come
yeah.
on now. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, but no, but yeah, right? And it's a
Yes.
mess. And also what I've learned from you and from other women of color, like, I recognize it is not y'all's job to teach my white ass how to be a better human. Yet there are people like you who are standing up and being like, well, and I'm still going to do it, even though it's not
Yeah.
my flipping job. And so I appreciate that, not just as like a white appearing lady that's like, please help me learn how to not suck so much in this department of complete, like, I'm just not going to think about it. Right. And
Right.
words like woke or activated or
Mm,
social justice warrior, these tend to be overused if you're not like actually putting your money where your mouth is or walking the talk. Like it has
correct.
to, you have to live your philosophy, right? And so it's not just like on hashtag trending days. And so
Right.
I appreciate you bringing up right in the intro, like decolonization. That's like it's not a light
ASAP.
word, right?
No.
Right.
No,
And
it's
so
not.
can we talk a little bit about what actual diversity and inclusion looks like as we're decolonizing, because it feels like we have to be doing both at the same time, right? We can't just like make a new way and go over here and be like, that's all canceled, right? Like
No.
we have to be living in this shitstorm, this oppressive system that is patriarchal, it is misogynist, it is racist. We have to live in this space as we're actively creating the other one. So how do you work that through in your projects, in your programming, in your community?
Well, I don't believe that any of those sorts of spaces should be white led. That's my first and foremost.
Mm-hmm.
at all whatsoever. It is a hill I will die on. There's no depth and range, right? It's like, and feminists understand it when I say it. It's like if a man came to you and was like, okay, we're going to dismantle patriarchy and I'm going to teach you how. You're going to be like, what?
You're like, come again, sir? I'm sorry, what?
You are the problem, sir. So like that's how I feel about white people leading like any kind of DEI spaces, right? Like how exactly what's happening is they're just regurgitating and co-opting what black people are already saying, putting a white face on it and upcharging, which is
Mm,
the whitest thing that people could do, right? Is to
mhm,
commodify black pain, black trauma, black bodies, and be like, look, pay me now. Like
mhm,
that's the same thing. So when you're talking about, at least when I'm talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion, what it looks like is divesting from whiteness as a system, censoring the global majority to be speaking, censoring black people to be speaking. Because though there is a sentiment that black people should not be doing the educating, I land more on we don't need to educate you guys individually or any of that stuff, right? Like, I'm not here to be like, oh, could you tell me more so then you could utilize it? I'm here to guide you out of your own way because
mm,
whiteness is disruption and it disrupts white bodies as well. And without
mhm,
that recognition, we can't get to diversity and equity, right? Like that
mhm,
decolonization portion has to come first because we're still sitting with like white people can help us. So this means that white people are actually supreme, which means we are then feeding into the delusion of white
mhm,
supremacy, which
mhm,
is what I just said, a delusion. So when you're trying to get to diversity and equity, equity is like that bottom baseline right there. You have to actually decenter whiteness and recenter the
mhm,
global majority. And then
mhm,
you wind up at this equity. And that's when that praxis comes in that you were talking about, right?
mhm,
Living and working out your philosophy is the
mhm.
praxis. Like, oh, not, I learned this thing and now I'm going to talk about it. Yay.
Right,
And I'm like,
right.
I know I said that last week. I know I did. I heard me
Mhm,
say it. I even have a video of me saying it, and now you're repeating it. That is not equity. That's
mhm,
not equity
mhm,
at all. Equity looks like if you guys are here in these spaces, lifting up here. So now we're
mhm.
on this middle ground.
Right, and it's as I hear you say it, it's literally I don't know if this is a word, de-spotlight, like take the spotlight off of the white experience, right?
Decentering them. Yep.
Decenter, right? Um, is it apt to say like centering the black and brown experience, basically the
Yes.
non-white experience, right?
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely. Center the global majority.
Center the global majority, right? And so that there's space, so that it's not, yeah, anyway, so that that equality actually begins to happen versus just be spoken about in
Correct.
theoretics, right? Which I think is super interesting, something I've been seeing in another lane of my world. I work as a commercial photographer, not a lot lately because I've been busy building the backstage pass, but essentially what I've noticed in advertising imagery, right? And I'm sure many people, anybody who can look at advertisement and be like, oh wow, suddenly like even my Nordstrom card arrived with like the picture of a woman with like dreads driving the convertible versus a picture of like a
Yeah.
white lady with, right. And I'm like, okay, so everywhere the visual looks to be, oh, look at all of these people, but that's just for show, right? So like
Yes.
what
Yeah.
what for example, what does Nordstrom actually do within with its business structure, not just on its sales and its marketing and all that shit, but
All of
within
it.
its organization? Who's invested? Who are the investors? Who owns that, right? And
Correct.
just thinking about where we actually put our money and our time and our energy, if we're actually trying to do this thing, what bottom line is what really matters is where we spend our time and energy and money, right? And something
Absolutely.
I've learned specifically about women, this is a gendered stat on women, not based on anything else besides of demographics, but women in the United States currently have 83% of the purchasing power. That's more than half, y'all, right? And so then if you want to break that down into segments of Latinas, black women, women from different sectors, I'm sure it can be aptly put into another pie chart, but 83% of us humans in this country have purchasing power that can be sent in different directions. That's just
Right.
something to be mindful of when we're looking at those advertisements that suddenly look inclusive and diverse. It's like, but is that
Yeah.
company actually, right?
It's actually not. And it's just doing the same thing. Like I said, whiteness is going to continue to repeat itself because it is a system. right? So over and over again, once you see the system, you'll see how it just keeps repeating its cycle.
Hmm.
It's not changing, it's not shifting. And just because it adds a black face, that's nothing new. Black
Hmm.
faces, black aesthetic has been selling things for years. American culture is black culture. It's
Rock
it's
and
it's
roll is black culture. I mean, you right? Like,
American culture.
yeah.
Everything that they claim as culture is built and taken off of blackness, period.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
it is not new to use black as an aesthetic. We see it all the time. We get worn like costumes. And
Hmm.
so, like, slamming somebody with some locks on a Nordstrom car is very on par for whiteness. And once you start really pathologizing whiteness as a system, you will not get so excited by the little small things that they do. Like, ooh, this must be diverse. Let me go spend money. No, all they care about is
Right.
you spending money. There, nothing has changed within their community, their company structures, within, I'm sure not even within, and I don't know Nordstrom, so this is not directly towards Nordstrom, but I'm talking about any type of company.
Hmm.
It's important to see what the company culture is, right? Like,
Hmm.
are they actually being diverse within their company?
Hmm.
Is that
Right.
happening?
Right.
Do you see the equity actually happening, or do you see them commodifying black bodies and selling
Right.
them? And doesn't that sound familiar to whiteness?
Hmm. Well, and not to mention that slavery, right? Commodifying black bodies in a way that is up to no service of that particular person's experience, but
Right.
just
Does not
the
benefit the
experience,
community
the bottom
whatsoever.
line, right? As we've been building the Backstage Pass, it's been something I've been thinking about a lot, particularly as a white woman. Like, I had a company prior to COVID that was successful, right? I was making money, I was doing all these things, women owned and operated production company, and I felt pretty um I don't know, whatever, flattened, not just because of COVID couldn't work and stuff like that, but I'm thinking, like, what's the point of me activating this like women owned and operated thing if I don't, within the structure of my business, have these kinds of like organized structures from the
Right.
base. So I flipped the shit out of my company. Also, well, COVID, I mean, I don't need a cookie, but COVID was like, your company might not live past March of 13th, 2020 anyway. So it was an opportunity to kind of clean it out anyway. And so in rebuilding my production company and building the Backstage Pass, these are the kinds of questions I'm asking myself on a daily basis. And so you and I have had these conversations a few times through our mutual friend, Jen Bach, and Tamara, who's, this amazing woman in Georgia who's run for Senate now 5 times and is
Amazing.
particularly leading the way on conversations and legislation around reparations. But the reason that I don't need a cookie and I don't want any Karen parade of like, look at this white lady doing cool things. I'm just saying this from the perspective of like, I have to stay curious on how I can bake these things into the foundation of my new company instead of like in 5 years when there's like another, or in 5 months when there's another unfortunate moment of like global uprise where it's like, oh, it's cool, we're going to do that right now. Like, how
Right.
where in the very moment of our experience can we keep integrating these things so it isn't just like for show and tell, right? And so I'm eager to know, kind of going back to that conversation we had on your podcast, the distinction for you between feminists and humanists, because I learned, not just from you, but in my studying of feminism years ago, I was like, damn, those white ladies really showed up. But we know there were more than just white ladies on the planet 100 years ago. And why the hell did they acquiesce when the guys were like, okay, we'll give you the right to vote, but like only white ladies, right?
Hmm.
And so feminism has had its many waves, but it has not consistently ever been truly diverse or inclusive. So
Never.
talk to us about feminism versus humanism. I love this talk.
Like, well, I hate feminism.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I fucking cannot stand, like, it just like it irks my soul when people, I'm like, I'm a feminist, and I'm like, ugh, like you said that like it was a good thing, right? Like, like, just, it never worked even for white women, right? Like, if you really just look at like, where are y'all? Like, as a group, where are you? Feminism is a white construct, and all it is white women trying to be white men. White men and white women have co-created this world underneath their guise of supremacy together. They are not apart when you start getting outside of whiteness. Again, whiteness is its own system and its own container, created to exclude the global majority. So,
Mhm.
in that hell that white men and white women have created for themselves, they exist alone. So, when feminism came around and trying to do all of that, it was really just a conversation between those two people, like the
Mhm.
white men and white women, as always, leave everybody out. So they got what they needed or what they thought they needed because really all they want is proximity to power, which is their
Mhm.
proximity to white men and to be white men, right? We've had this conversation like the boss babes, like the Canva template, like coach, like I could show you 6 steps to, I don't know, some 6 figure something. And I'm like, fuck, you guys are your men. You're white men. You
Mhm.
feminism is the patriarchy in pink for me.
Mhm. Mhm.
So when you divest again from whiteness, because feminism is a part of a system of whiteness, and I pathologize it as an entire system. When you're divesting from whiteness and you start like moving into anything else outside of whiteness, you start thinking in a global view, right? Like
Mhm.
you
Right.
like, that statement, like, think global, vote local kind of thing. What are you really doing? White women and feminism, because feminism I always equate with whiteness, is absolutely just about becoming white men and being in power and holding up capitalism and not dismantling anything. Where you move into like womanism, like more black
Mhm.
women will identify with womanism. Me personally, like I'm a humanist. I want to see everyone liberated. I want, I'm anti-oppression in all of its facets that
Mhm.
it's been created in. So for me, that's why I moved out of it. Feminism is too much like trying to be like white men, where
Mhm.
when you start getting into humanism or a humanistic view, it's a global view. Like how is my life impacting the global? How are my choices impacting the global, right? And it's more for me an energetic work, right? Like when I'm doing this, I'm like, let's think about the epigenetic trauma. How has this traveled?
Mm.
7 generations back, 7 generations ahead. We need to be figuring it out from that point. And feminism for me is very much about the now, right? Which is what
Mhm.
you'll see when it's like, okay, yeah, we got the vote. Oh, we don't care about them. We got what we needed now. And then in the next feminist wave, it's about what needs to happen in that wave now. Whiteness
Mhm.
does, it never allows a global view and it never is expansive enough because whiteness is so tight. It's never expansive enough to say, like, let's create equity, let's create partnership, let's create liberation. It's just like, what do we need now? Which is a
Mhm.
very white concept.
Well, it's super extractive, right? And when we look at, a couple things there, right? When you said white men and white women have created their own personal hell, but I don't think that I don't they we whatever. I don't think it's I don't I think probably that group of folks are like we're having a great time, but they've trapped. There's this
Yeah.
is sort of
But
trap, right?
but when you look at from it from the outside, they're not. White women
Right.
and their conversations about they hate white men. White men cannot stand white women. Like it is a dysfunctional family system that impacts the global majority. It is something, it's
Mhm.
why my focus is them. Like you need to heal what's going on with you. Why are you upholding these pillars of white supremacy, that perfectionism, your individualism, your lack of community, that like that going at each other, that constant competition. It's not a happy place.
Well,
The
right, and
lie told that it's a happy place that makes everybody want it. So then we start participating in the systems that it's created, but it's not a happy place.
it's definitely not a happy place, and that's what I'm guess I'm saying is that you used the word earlier, illusion, right? Of what is working and what's not, and the system of it blows my mind often how every day we get to keep working in a system that is clearly dysfunctional, right? And I see consistently, not just from 2020 forward, but I would say many years prior to that, the slow crumbling of this empire that is
Thank
built
God.
on the back, right? And it's been a long time coming, and it takes people like you and me, Jen Buck, Tamara, and other female forward leaders that have not just vision, but voice and the ability to be like, okay, so like let's actually use different words, let's use different structures, let's build it different ways, and essentially to like decentralize, to take the power from this small group and spread it out a bit more. And I think similar to things like, I'm not going to go on to a tangent about crypto, but like the way crypto, Facebook, and sorry, basically a decentralization from what is like everything being centered in one small group of people's hands.
Correct.
So banking, right? We see crypto spinning off in these other ways, and people are like, that's a little wild right now. But the concept is that the centralized way it's organized is we are less and less appealed to it, right? Same for social media. What we're building on the Backstage Pass is a decentralized experience to connect with thought leaders, industry disruptors, and business activists. So we're not in Zuckerberg's little hub of like, owning the internet and WhatsApp, Instagram, and all that shit. That's why we're recording on Restream actually right now, because when we were having these conversations before last year, in fact, many of our conversations when we aired on Facebook or Instagram, they'd tune us off. They turned us off straight up because we are a threat to that centralized use of power when we have conversations that seek to decentralize that power. And so I think what you're mentioning as like a more humanist approach to how we show up every day requires us to like not just turn a blind eye, but like say like, no, I don't use that. I don't support that. I don't buy that product. I don't go to that store. I don't interact with that kind of exchange. And it is interesting to think about like a network effect of a ton of humans like you and I doing that on a regular basis to actually affect social change versus like, oh, I only do that on Saturdays, right? Or I only do that like when I have to go to the march and like say like BLM, but like on Sunday I'm just like, well, maybe not today, right? Like it's a philosophy that has to be embodied every moment of your life.
It's praxis. It really is. It's like, what is your philosophy? How are you practicing it? And people have this really difficult way of like, they don't understand or they think it's just something to do. And then that is more performance of these systems of whiteness, right? Where if you start divesting from that and you're censoring Black voices and you're censoring the global majority and you start moving into community and community building, this is where you get equity because whiteness is a pyramid scheme.
I mean, it's on the dollar bill. It's on the dollar bill.
MLM, right? Like, and like even most of the white people can't get into it. That's why, like for me, I'm like, it's a delusion, fam. Like it's a ruling class, the tippity top of the pyramid, and even your white ass can't get in. So the fact that you're scrambling to do so is absolutely wild to me, right? And speaking to the point of you use the word power, right? Like to take the power from this group and spread it out. I'm saying take away the power. We don't need to have power over each other. We don't need to have power over community. We don't need to have power over the land. We need to coexist, right? Like we need the expansiveness to come into spaces and to come into partnership with others, to be like, oh, I see what you're doing. I'm doing something similar. Let's come together. Let's see how expansive this can get. Ooh, yeah, me too. And this is how you dissolve the system, right? Because like I'm all for burn this motherfucker. But realistically, can we do that? Maybe, maybe not, but we're not together enough to do so. But we can dissolve it by creating, like, to your point all the way in the beginning, is how are we living in this world while creating the other one? That's what community is for, right? Like finding like-minded people moving in that energy, in that level of alignment, and creating what you want to see. Like all of those really cool quotes that, woke white witches, like, be the change you want to see in the world. Yeah, bitch, be the change you want to see in the world. Like, let me actually see you do it, right? Like,
come on now.
Let me see that in motion, right? Like, so put your ass in motion, not just talking and not just lip service is something that's very important. That is the praxis that comes together. And like, I'm good on not having power. Like, power is fucking exhausting. And when people really recognize how exhausting power is, they won't want it anyway. But it's this and it doesn't really exist. It's only for the ruling class. Everybody else under here needs to dissolve and create equity.
Well, and that's why I think we see like the Great Resignation, because more and more women, all the skin tones, are like, wait a second,
I'm not doing this no more.
Where am I trying to get to? And my favorite is like when we take this and we go like this. First of all, what's that look like? Hello, just saying. But also, there's a lot more surface area on this top space for us to not, as you say, not distribute the power, but like just organize together, right? And what does that look like? And that's what I hear, this sort of like ancient patriarchal voice in the back of my head that's like, Yeah, but how does shit get done then, Rose? Like, if you don't have like a power structure of, right? And it's like, oh, I don't know.
Community.
Community, communication,
Yeah,
leaning towards each other for like that's ancient tribes have done that well before colonization, well
correct.
before the. I just went and saw Woman King. Went by myself in the theater. I was definitely, again, I don't need a Karen cookie, but I was like definitely the only white bitch in the audience, and I was just
Yeah.
like, Viola Davis, like bring me life. Like I don't like violence. I don't like those kind of war movies, but that film and the sort of energy of like courage and like they talk about, I mean, every topic that's like, whether it's like colonialism, rape, violence against women from the white man, from the black man, from the like, I mean, they got in that film was like not light lifting.
I think it went in depth. I think it could have gone deeper into some other aspects of it, but I really did enjoy the movie um, so much. And I went with a bunch of other Black women, and it was beautiful just to see all the different parts and that coming together for me of her and him in like that structure that they created. I really liked it. I did like the movie.
It's pretty incredible. It was pretty incredible. How did you feel when you were leaving the film? Like when
I
it
did
was
not
over,
want
when you walked out?
to people for 3 to 5 business days.
Say one more time.
I said I did not want to talk to white people for 3 to 5 business days. I was like, I'm good. I really want to see white folks.
That's an
Oh,
awesome. I really wish you put that on your email response. Like,
I, yeah, can't talk to white people for 3 to 5 business days. But how I felt like I said, I think that there was a really good um, coming together of like Black women and Black men in that space. Like, like,
mm,
oh, we could do this. There were a lot of feelings. There was a ton of feelings, right? Like, I think as a mixed person, I was so fucking sick and tired. I get so tired of seeing like the tragic mulatto, but I guess his point was necessary in the movie. Um, it was just very interesting. There were a lot of things. That could be a whole other episode because
yeah,
there's like
totally.
a lot of different things in the movie, like pointing out, like I really was like, oh shit, yeah, good point. Okay, yeah, that's valid.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah,
It was intense.
it could have its own dissertation, TED Talk, and
It
certainly
really could.
small talk with big thinkers. One more question on Women King as we kind of wrap up here. I would love to hear what you think about this, Desiree. So, what I noticed in the beginning of that, like the trailers, all of the films leading up to the start of Woman King, obviously targeted towards the intended audience who would be there, which was aside from myself, all Black folks, and I was like, awesome, right? But like Till, and I can't remember. There was a couple other stories, films that were stories around the Black experience. And what occurred to me, not just in my own brain, but I literally heard a woman next to me be like, "Wonder if they're showing these trailers in the white theaters, right?" And I was like, "Wait, theaters aren't segregated." But then I was like, "But actually, the segregation of
Yeah,
advertisement,
it's
right?"
still
And then
segregated.
right,
Everything is.
and then back to the lady with dreads on the Nordstrom advertisement, right? It's like, huh. So okay, so the flip of this over here is like I if I'm in a theater with my white sister watching a show about this crocodile or whatever, I want her to see the trailer for Till because she would never go watch the story about Emmett Till. But because the way that trailer was presenting a mother's love for her child, and my sister's a new mother, I was like, I feel like she would maybe watch that. And I wonder if that trailer goes into the film, into the theaters of the more white audience, because that would be the point so that we begin to build empathies with these stories, right?
Yeah, I mean, I have a whole other view on that. Like, it's very similar to like my views on feminism. I'm good on pouring out Black trauma for white folks.
Fair.
Super fucking good on it. Super fucking good on it. And the way that white people just lay out Black trauma, but will trigger warning, fucking eating, money spending, rape, and everything else. But here, let's talk about a 14-year-old autistic child who what? No, no, no. So personally, I am not a fan, right? And I think that this is more reason to be pathologizing whiteness, its systems, and its effect on the white bodies and minds and souls. If you need to watch movies in order to feel empathy,
Mm,
there's a whole fucking disconnect that you need
mm,
to be
mm,
working on. There's an entire human disconnect, and that is what whiteness as a system creates, a complete and utter disconnect from community and your own humanity. And so
mhm,
the way that I do is I'm helping you get back to your own humanity. I should not
Mm,
have to pour out trauma. You understand everything else when it's spoken about?
mm,
Like, trust
great
trust
point.
Black stories. Like, this is not new. These stories have been being told, right? And it's like, why do I need to pour out some of the worst stories in history every day? Living amongst and with white people is its own trauma.
Just to get their buy-in that like
We
BLM,
live in a country
right?
like that we were drugged to and never asked to be in, with you guys running it. Though I recognize that you're a white presenting Jewish person, but you understand what I'm saying? Like, white
Yeah,
people
yeah,
are
yeah.
running. So it's like, no. So I really don't give a fuck if they're in any trailers. I really wish they weren't movies,
Got it. Good,
right?
good to
And
hear.
like, yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Totally. It's so interesting for me. Like I'm a student for life, right? So like I'm gonna learn from the person I cross the street at the coffee shop,
Right.
in at the Woman King, in our chats here. So I'm always grateful for your insights, as well as just like anyone who's gonna challenge my like I have this idea. It's like, that's kind of a cute idea, but actually it's kind of stupid also. So like maybe not. I'm like, let me see about like what because I'm like, hey, if like so I think empathy is a muscle to train, right? In wrapping up
Yeah.
our conversation, like when it comes to diversity, inclusion, collaboration, elevation, inspiration, any of the things that we stand for in the Backstage Pass, but like as if you really give a fuck about something, like you have to empathize with it, right? And so I
Right.
lead with my empathetic muscle, and I have to train it every day, like squats. Like I have to do as many empathetic squats with my experience as I do with my tush if I'm actually going to be able to like stand up in this world and give a damn, instead of just doing it on hashtag trending days when
Right.
everybody else is marching in the park. So as we wrap up, Desiree, I want to just first thank you very much. Is there anything you have coming up that you want people to know about as far as like how to engage with you further? We'll pop your website up here again, or any other just parting thoughts generally
Um,
as we wrap.
yeah, the website has everything. We're gonna be doing better with updating stuff. But I'm Desiree B. Stevens everywhere. TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. So you could find me there. And then keep up with all of the cool things and people who I'm partnering with. Right now, I am partnering with Mark Boyd on some survival school that he's
Mm,
doing, and that's really exciting. So he's teaching preparedness, husbandry, weapons training, and that's my most immediate collaboration. So, and you could find that on my Instagram in my bio, and it's like Thrive to Survive group. I think I wrote it like that, but it's a survival group,
mm.
and he's pretty awesome.
Is
And
that in person? Is that digital?
he's going to be doing some in person, but he does 10 minutes of training every day. Like, 10
Oh,
minutes,
cool.
dry fire. Yesterday we learned a knot. I can't remember the name. I'm not that person. But I mean, like, it was a knot. And he's going to be
Okay.
doing it all week. So I'll be there tonight. Like, so if you want to come hang out with me tonight,
Okay.
it's virtually, it's on Zoom, 7 p.m. Eastern. Again, that link is in my bio. As far as anything else coming up, I am doing I'm moving into doing more group sessions and counseling for decolonization inside of my own online community. You could find that makeshift happen community on my website as well. And just kind of stay tuned. And my last final thoughts is, like, to your point of empathy being a muscle, I need people, very specifically white people, to start focusing on seeing themselves as whole humans. The more you meet yourself, right? Like, because people can only meet you as deeply as they met themselves.
Mm,
Like, that's it. That's it. They can go no deeper. So until you start going deep within your own self and really seeing how systems of whiteness have impacted you and harmed you and shown your own self empathy, you don't have the capability to show empathy to anybody else. So start
mm,
focusing on that.
mm. Thank you for those words. That's like super,
Absolutely.
super grounding stuff. And I appreciate these big thoughts, small talks, big thinkers. Desiree B. Stevens, as a way to lead up to our big celebration on Wednesday, October 19th. We've built the Backstage Pass so that conversations like this can happen regularly with connections to industry disruptors, thought leaders, and business activists, because it takes a fucking village if we're going to really build a different way of interacting in the world.
Yes.
And as the previous structure fades, and I am with you, Des. Like I kind of wish it could just get out of here quicker, but it's on its own timeline, but we've got our own timelines. And so I'm really grateful we can have conversations with awesome humans like Desireé. And hopefully, Des, you can join us at the party. It's the Digital Dance Party, 8 p.m. Wednesday on the 19th. There'll be dancing, there'll be prizes, it'll be light. This is a heavy convo. It's important to have these things, but the party on Wednesday will just be like dropping some beats. Much thanks to our Black and Brown friends who brought that culture to the world so that we can have some great beats to dance to. So cool, Desireé. Well, thank you again for stopping by, and we'll be in touch and stay in orbit. Thank you so very much.
Take care.
Cheers. All right, everybody. Well, this was another small talk with a big thinker. Super glad that you could tune in and join us. If you haven't already, definitely come backstage. The link is right here. As I said, we've got our big digital dance party celebrating 1 year of having the lights on the backstage pass. And in case you don't already know, because I've got some viewers here, I think from Dez's channels, we are building the most important place on the internet for women who want to see the world change and live life on our own terms. And the Backstage Pass is a global hub for thought leaders, industry disruptors, and business activists. Think social entrepreneurs meet a humanist Facebook, maybe a little like a matriarchal MySpace, if you're vintage enough to know what MySpace was, even like a lady boss LinkedIn. I have to be careful where I say this because sometimes the channels like to mute us as we talk about the things we're building that are outside of the centralization of power and access that most of the internet has been built around. So I'm really excited to be part of this movement, of this philosophy of organizing with other amazing women leaders. And I hope that you're excited as well. So if you have not yet already registered for our October 19th event, that's Wednesday, 8 p.m. EST, you can go to our main website, which is ladybossinternational.club, and find the registration information there. We are active on some of the other social media channels, as long as they don't, cancel us, which happens occasionally. So we just build other ways. All right. That's all I have for today. It is Friday. I hope you, wherever you are in the world, are having a really inspired moment, and look forward to connecting with you on Monday. What are we talking about Monday? Well, we wanted to jam pack all of our core values. Sorry, I said that was all I have, but actually I have a few more things. We wanted to put our core values into these small talks, as well as the topics we're going to be talking about in our podcast that actually drops on Wednesday at the party. Spoiler alert, I'm super excited. So on Monday, we're having conversations about money and sex, and Tuesday we will talk about politics, and then Wednesday we will be dancing about all of these glorious connections we've made in the last year with our platform. So tune in on Monday at 1 p.m. EST to talk about sex, and at 2 p.m. EST to talk about money. Did I do that right? Did I have it in the right order? Anyways, there's graphics on social. You can go see the schedule. But we'll be doing 2 more small talks on Monday, 1 more on Tuesday, and we'll be dancing our asses off on Wednesday because we can. All right, that is officially all I have for now. I hope that you have a beautiful rest of your day, and